Hi, my name is Karen Holmes. I'm the founder and director of the World Peace Organization for the One World Government. Today I wanted to share with you a vision that I had this morning as I was waking up. I saw everything was black and total pitch black, and in the blackness there were many tiny little points of light. I assumed that each one of those points of light was a person. It represented a person and the light that each of us has inside of ourselves. Okay, then what happened was the light started to move from one side to the other, and some of it was kept on going straight, and some of it took off and went down, like a not so much of an off-ramp, it went straight down. So what I took that to mean is that a large percentage of the population is going to keep on going straight, and the other part is going to go down into the power games. And in previous visions, I basically said that we always have three choices: up, down, or straight ahead, but there isn't anyone who's going up at this point in time. And that is because people are either relying on the games or they're relying on tradition. And I'm going to just use the United States, refer to the United States, because the same things are happening in every country, but we're kind of like the first country that has to choose to come in, because we're into the proposed international government, because we are the overview idea. And basically we're looking at purifying the U.S. Constitution, our legal system, the Constitution. We're looking at all these ideas. So this vision wasn't a very good vision in terms it wasn't, so it was a warning to us that we need to do something. Okay, we need to start to make some effort to choose to go up. And that's what I wanted to talk about today. The people, the people who are going straight ahead are relying on tradition. They're relying on, using Biden as an example, he's relying on the existing structure to solve problems. The only problem with it is, like standing on the science, the only problem with it is that science hasn't figured out things yet. It's very knowledgeable. It's got facts, it's got everything, but it's got missing links. There's missing information that makes everything kind of backwards at times. An example of this is, if you understand something, if you know the root cause of a problem, with the planning process you can solve the problem. With the planning process you can solve the problem. You can find a solution. And then the difference between, Archangel Michael told us, the difference between heaven and hell is that in heaven there's a solution to your problems. Okay, think about that for a minute, and think about, in heaven there is a solution to the problem. So when we address the root cause of the problem, is it coming from science, or is it coming from, and all this structure that doesn't necessarily believe in God? I'm not saying that's the case for everyone, but what happens if the answer is found in heaven, the root cause of the situation, and we're just applying the information in our own lives? So let's say that there's a root cause. How about the root cause of cancer? Do the doctors know where cancer comes from? I asked the spiritual hierarchy, I asked God where cancer comes from, and God gave me the answer to that. Chemotherapy doesn't solve the problems that people have that give them cancer. So here we have people who know how to solve the problems with no credibility, and the people who don't know how to solve the problems, and who might be even playing power games and saying, if I cure this person, I'm not going to be able to pay for my family to go on vacation, or my new home, or something like that, and my kids to go to college. That's kind of like the old joke. My kids, the dentist saying you need 5 new crowns and my kids need to go to college or something like that. I have to pay this bill. The root cause of the problem, if it's coming from God, there's a solution. So, but what is God? So it all comes down to, what is God? Who is God? Is God the old man on the throne idea? Is God, where does this all fit in? So when you look at science and you look at what it stands on, is if your plan doesn't address the root cause of the problem, it makes it worse. If you have chemotherapy, does that solve the problems that gave you the cancer? No, because if everybody understood the root cause of the problem, that it came from God, and it came from God, that would be the true scientific idea. And we have people in our group, we have a Christian science group. But even that, I did a book with Mary Baker Eddy, and she told me that she had 2 things that she didn't get right about Christian science. So it's the same thing. What do we have? What 2 things did she do that made Christian science kind of backwards? She was doing a really good job. But what were those 2 things? And that's what we cover in the book. It's like not understanding the root cause of the problem and then not relying on God. Now, I'm going to give you an idea of God and this idea of solving the problem. Okay, when the pendulum swings out and it reaches its farthest level of swing, this extreme end of the swing, there's a flip-flop idea, and then it comes back. So let's say that all along science has been doing this. It's been swinging the pendulum out, but not necessarily addressing the root cause of the problem. Like Fauci and Biden saying we have to stand on the science. But what happens if they don't have the root cause of the problems and they don't believe it? Then what happens is there's this weird idea that the science, they don't believe in God. Let's say that. They don't believe in this idea that the answer has to come from God. The points of light were coming from, we are part of God. We are tiny points of light that we are part of God. We are the light of God. We're not just learning things. We're not just doing things. Light is a creative substance. We share the opportunity, the gift of creativity with God. We are creative, but we create by intent or by the default because we don't always know the root cause of the problem. Okay, when you're looking at science and you're looking at God, they lean on each other. It's not that they are separate and, hey, I don't believe in you and you don't believe in me. So basically, what are we going to do? So they lean on each other. So one explains the situation one way and one explains it the other way. And if this one doesn't know what it is, then the other one can answer the question. The mathematicians have been looking at the unified field theory. I have a book that explains over here the unified field theory. Right over there. The unified field theory. Albert Einstein was looking all over for it. Genius. And basically, my daughter learned about the unified field theory when she was in her first day of mathematics in school when she was in kindergarten. She learned the unified field theory in kindergarten. So then it explains it in that book over there. So when you look at God as the unified field theory, basically, God is one, unified. One and unified mean the same thing. So if you are a spiritual person, you already found the unified field theory because we call that person that God. And if you're a scientist, they're looking for it. Okay? The theory of everything. That is the unified field theory. We're looking for the theory of everything, but what is it? So then the scientific people are going, we haven't found this yet. The spiritual people have learned it, but the scientific people don't believe it. So how do you get the scientific people to believe it? It's when this pendulum swings, and then there's a flip-flop, and then the spiritual people are solving the problems that science can't. Okay, so now how does that work? When you stop to think of it, you have all that is. You have God, all that is. The unified field theory is all that is, the theory of everything. And when you have God, that's the definition of God. Yeah, it explains that, but God is lots of different levels and lots of different parts, and all of them come together into the same idea. It goes into that in that book. It explains it a lot better than I do. But when you think of it as that, then you think of it as separating out into parts. And you have like all those little points of light are God. God broke out parts of itself and sent it out, and then we are now on our way back to God. So now think of it as this. So we can look at the whole idea and call it God, or we can look at the different parts of it and call that God too. So the different parts start like technology. If you put it all in a pie-shaped thing, diagram, then you on one side is technology. It breaks off into technology, and then on the opposing side of the circle, the opposite pie, is conflict resolution, and it doesn't completely line up. It's crisis in the family and conflict resolution. So you have a plan, and then it has to address the conflict resolution and crisis in the family segments. And so it's kind of unusual, but it works. So if you have a crisis, you come up with a plan, and then the plan has to address the root cause of the problem, or it makes the problem worse. So what happens is then you're not part of everything, you're separate from it. And that's the next group of people that I'm talking about, is the people who are going down. Those are the people who go down into the power games. And I watched a little video about it over the last couple of days. It was a court case where a young woman was in court explaining. They were doing a Zoom call, and a woman was explaining about her boyfriend or husband or whatever attacking her, being oppressive and abusing her. And she wasn't answering the questions very well. And then the attorneys caught on and said, oh, he's in the same building, he's in the same room that she is in, and she can't answer the questions. And so as they were doing it, then the police came and they arrested him. And the attorney, or the judge, said to him, the young man was protesting that he wasn't being treated fairly. And the judge said to him, he said, you dug a hole for yourself, and now you're digging it deeper. You're not just coming out of the hole, you're digging it deeper. So this is where revenge is when you are digging, you have dug yourself into a hole in the ground, and you're digging yourself deeper into it. So basically, the principles that I've talked about in previous videos about the free power source invention, that basically is, and based on the 7 principles of universal law, God's law, that is what brings the pendulum back to the straight and narrow. Again, it balances those out. It's the counterpoint. You could say conflict resolution is basically the first requirement for conflict resolution is equality, the principle of equality. And the first principle of universal law is equality. So it creates a sense of conflict resolution. It treats everybody equally. For a fair trial, everybody has to be considered equal. There can't be a woman who's been abused and the abuser in the same room, and the man has all the power and the woman has none. It can't work that way. They have to stand on the idea of a fair trial, that the woman had the right to defend herself and the man had the right to defend himself too, but not to deny her the right to a fair trial. They both had the right, their own rights, and when he took away her rights, he lost his. And that's the way it is now. I'm going to say I'm going to close this with this one idea. This is something that was all, it was all about people going forward like this and people going down to the vision. Now the people to go up, we have to stand on the principles of universal law. We have to address this idea of, let's say, if there's a problem, crisis in the family idea, then we have to come up with a plan, but the plan has to address the root cause of the problem. And then it has to stand on the principles of the planning process and include everything. If it only goes like where you're going to get the support or where you're going to, the plan, bringing in the people, the support, it has to go all the way and address this idea of all the stages of the planning process. When I did the planning for the first 9 government proposals, I set it up so that it was easy to see the steps of each of the plans, each of the government proposals, and addressing the root cause of the problem. What is the root cause of the problem and what was happening? Now, I'm not going to say that that's the perfect plan, because what I'm doing is I'm introducing an idea and I'm just looking at it, but then the next person to come in, I'm responsible for the first one. Then the next one comes in, and that is the person who's going to address. Mine addresses power, where power comes from. I'm just going to say that I'm not a very powerful person. Do I look like a powerful person? Nope, I'm probably the least powerful person you've ever known. I'm a Sagittarius. I'm a mutable sign. People can kind of fool me, do things, but I also am pretty smart about revenge and how it works and why it doesn't work, and the things. I'm also a student. So let's just say that if you confused me with somebody who had no power, hey, it would be real easy to do. So where does true power come from? Does it come from having a big office building, a big office, driving an expensive car, wearing expensive suits? I shop because I'm retired and all my money goes to my organization, I shop at thrift stores. Okay? So you look at me and say, she's not powerful, but power comes from, where does true power come from? And that's the lesson that my job is. I have my side of the organization. There's the inventors and the investors. All the inventors are kind of like in the same situation that I'm in. We never achieved, we are intelligent, we are educated in most cases. We've never achieved what we set out to do. Other people have been so easy to get houses and jobs that are, I had a really good paying job for a long time. But what I'm saying is we never really achieved what other people could do easily. And then on the other side, there are investors who have what was easy for them to get, what we have never been able to achieve. And that is going to be an interesting idea. Where does true power come from? Does it come from? That's where I am. Okay, addressing where true power comes from. The next one comes in and says, so let's say I'm parallel to Iraq. Okay, the Iraqi people went through a terrible situation with the Iran-Iraq war, and when the preemptive strike hit, 70% of the population was under 15. So you had that other 30%, half men and half women, trying to figure out, not even that, because of the war would have killed so many people. What they did was they had no power. People were taking their natural resources. People were going in and toppling their government. People were doing some really terrible things in Iraq. But the United States, George W. Bush had his coalition countries. He had Tony Blair from the United Kingdom. He had everything. He had the world's biggest military, and he had a huge budget. They had rifles and the things that they could handle. The IEDs that they made in their kitchens. That's what they did to defend their country. So, did they have any power? Now, if the United States took away their unalienable rights in Iraq, then we lost our unalienable rights. By toppling a government when there were no weapons of mass destruction, we are facing the backlashes of universal law right now. It was a plan that didn't stand on the principles of solving problems. Basically, what it did was it collapsed our power base. And this is what we're going to go into. By losing our unalienable rights, by taking it away, we lost ours. And now to get them back, we have to guarantee them to every person on the planet. And that is by sharing what's easy to share. Our natural resources is our greatest asset, besides our population, is our Constitution. That's our niche. That is what made America great, is our Constitution. Not Donald Trump. America was great long before he was even born. But every country is great. Okay, so now that makes us equal. Principles of equality. God sees everybody as being equal. Doesn't matter how old. In my organization, it doesn't matter how old you are or how young you are. Everybody's considered equal, which makes some people kind of really angry. The people who think they're important. But that's the game of war. I'm important leads to wars. Revenge, that's the first stage of revenge. So anyway, the next person to come in is going to focus on the United States, the constitutional amendment proposal, and that is going to be addressing unalienable rights. It's going to be this big body of knowledge that works with mine about where power comes from. And so first we're looking at where true power comes from, and then we're going to look at unalienable rights. And then each time we're going to be addressing all of this information that God has given us, the books that I channeled with God, the creator of us all, not the old man on the throne idea or whatever somebody's religious interpretation of God is. Because religion is a cultural interpretation of universal law, but it doesn't address the whole thing. Each one is only just one idea. So anyway, we're going to look at that, and we're going to look at all these different ideas. And then hopefully what we can do is start to deflect all those people so everybody is going up. And we're going to change that vision so that it's not straight ahead relying on tradition that doesn't have the existing structure that can't solve the pandemic, that can't solve the cancer, it can't deal with climate change, it can't deal with anything, the economic crisis. Basically, by relying on the existing structure, we go down because it's not relying on God. One nation, America, the United States of America. I'm adding America because that's kind of like our soul. Where the United States is like a corporation, our soul is America. And basically our purpose in life is we are one nation, indivisible, under God. Under God makes us indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so that's where we are now. Now, I wanted to just say one thing. One of the things that's been happening in our organization is that the people who have been getting revenge, who've gone down and they're digging the hole deeper, those are the people who basically, their pentacle of power, and I've talked about this before in other videos, the pentacle of power that they've been relying on has collapsed. And people are starting to actually die because of this. When they go down and they dig, imagine the young man who abused his girlfriend and she took him to court, and then he's digging his hole deeper. Imagine that what might have been like a 5-year sentence in jail turned out to be a 15-year sentence in jail because what he did by denying her a fair trial. Okay, how he responded, that was important. That's when you dig yourself deeper. The people who have been getting revenge on other people and digging themselves deeper, they're having a very hard time right now. Some of them are starting to die because they can't figure out how to create the life they want. When people die when they believe they can't get their life, and so those are people who have been relying on revenge and digging their hole deeper, and they're down at the bottom of the abyss, pegged to the last wall of hell for revenge, and I'm going to get revenge, then it's basically those people are probably, they're having a very hard time surviving. We haven't been able, because of all the backlashes that we've gotten from the people who are the boogeyman, and that's a future video that I'm going to share with you about the boogeyman. Once that happens, once they're doing that, by trying to stop the plan for world peace from coming, now that's the next step I wanted to talk about too. I wanted to share that with you too. The people who are going down, I was reading, I was going through my things, my decor, so to speak, for, this is a storage unit. I have lots of stuff stored in here. And I've been collecting stuff like patriotic things for organization events and things like that. And one of the things is I read through the Declaration of Independence today. And the thought occurred to me that the Republicans who are going down, they're preparing for a rebellion, a revolution. One of the girls, women, not girls, I think of girls, because anybody's quite a bit younger than me. A lot of those points of light are quite a bit younger than I. Basically, she said the revolution has started. The revolution. They're looking at revolution. So when you look at the Declaration of Independence, what is oppressive? You read about how our founding fathers were standing up against the oppressive, the tyranny of a authoritarian government, about King George III. Okay, so read through the Declaration of Independence and stop to consider where people are now. Are those people who are thinking about Joe Biden, are they, or Obama, or the Clintons, the Republicans who are getting revenge, are they thinking about these people are oppressive, they're tyrannical, and basically what they're going to do is they are going to rebel against the Democrats. Okay, think about where they are in their thinking. Now the reason I'm asking you to do that is because how do we stop? Okay, so Donald Trump has been getting revenge on them, and he worked together with the Republicans and his supporters, got the money, the funding, his plan. He came up with a plan to become president of the United States. He drew in the people to help him do that. Now, who are the people who helped him do that? Was it Vladimir Putin who helped him do that? What was happening with Vladimir Putin? Because they never really resolved that. The Republicans never told anybody, they never allowed any of that information to go through when it had to do with the impeachment and the Ukraine, and how much of that had to do with the support of the Russians. Okay, Vladimir Putin, we're friends, the Helsinki comment. Then what happened, he brought in the support. That was the third group of people who brought in the Trump supporters. And he was weaving illusion, he was telling lies, one lie after the other. And what were the lies that he told? Was it something where he was deflecting what he was saying onto other people to like, okay, let's say the opposite of the idea of the pendulum swinging out and then the flip-flop. If you flip-flop an idea and deflect it onto somebody else, they're the bad guys and you're the good guy, right? But that's not that. In the Bible it says that thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. Okay, thou shalt not lie. That's one of the problems with revenge. Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. Now, the last thing is, okay, that leads to crisis in the family. What is the crisis in the next step is crisis in the family. And what is the next step? What happens if you have a plot? The next step has to do with crisis in the family. So what if there is a all these 74 million people, Russians, and all the people who potentially are willing to work with Donald Trump to make him president again, to ignore the election, the voice of all the people who voted, then basically what happens is then we're dealing with conflict resolution. We're dealing with security issues. So we're dealing with the issue related to Russia. We're dealing with all this stuff, with people coming and getting revenge. If they're getting revenge, what are they going to do to get revenge? Donald Trump had a plan, and now he's going through all this. Now, the next step is, if you can't deal with security issues, if Joe Biden doesn't have any power to stop security issues, then basically that's the point where our democracy is going to go down. So we cannot keep going this way, and we cannot go down. We have to start going up. And that is the first principle is, okay, I should really go back and finish what I was saying. But that's so scary. Okay, so just hold your horses, because there's a solution. Okay, we know the root cause of the problem, and that is revenge. It doesn't work. Okay, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. Revenge doesn't work. You collapse, just like George Bush did when you attack an innocent person. You crucify or sacrifice an innocent person. You dig your hole in the ground, and then how you respond to that, if you are a young man and you abuse a woman, your girlfriend, you dig a hole, and if you go deeper, that's when you're digging yourself deeper, when you respond to it in a way that isn't, yes, Your Honor, I understand what's going on, and I'm willing to assume responsibility for what I did. Okay, that would have been the first step for him to come out, okay, of his abyss. Okay, he still had to pay the penalty of it for what he had done, but if see, it's kind of like, this is logical. So what has to happen now is, like I said, we look at where true power comes from. Revenge doesn't work. Then we start to look at universal law and the 7 principles. Conflict resolution. If the Republicans are thinking about rebellion, they're thinking about Obama and Biden and the Clintons being oppressive and Benghazi and all the problems, and we're standing up for America. We're gonna storm the Capitol. The revolution has started. We've been preparing for this for a long time. If that's the case, then what we have to do is understand the solution is universal law. The principles of universal law are equality, liberty, freedom, compassion, abundance, capacity, and tolerance. Okay? We have to create a sense of taking our Constitution, if the end of the cycle is here, then we can go up, down, or straight ahead. Do we want Donald Trump to be a king? That's down. He's not solving problems. He can't solve them. Do we want it straight ahead? No. What we want is to go up. Now, the debate that we're going to have right now is what is up when it comes to electing a president of the United States. What do we want? Americans, what do we want? All Americans, what do we want for a president? How are we going to elect a president? Is it going to be just the powerful elite that get to come in, or is it going to be based on problem solving? Is it going to be with all this dark money behind them, and that they've sold their soul to somebody like the Russians? No, we don't want somebody who sold his soul to the Russians. We don't want somebody who sold his soul to the Chinese. We don't want anybody who is not an American, but we also want somebody who can work with other people and help to solve the problems that we can't solve on the national level and on the international level. So we need actually 2 presidents. The international government will have 2 presidents, one for the national level and one for the international level. And it's going to go on like that. So think about what it is. What goes up? If we were to not dig a hole in the ground and by getting revenge, and if we were not going to go down deeper, digging a hole deeper, then what we want to do is we want something where we can function on a higher level, something where the root cause of the problem is something that God gives us, the root cause of the problem. So the age of prophecy is coming back. Now we have to understand that who the prophets are, and not listen to people who don't stand on the principles of universal law. People are still people. We all have light inside of us, but we also have darkness inside of us, and we have fears. And even Muhammad and Jesus and Rama and Confucius and Lao Tzu and who did I miss? Jesus, Moses, Gautama Buddha, Muhammad, Rama, Confucius, and Lao Tzu. Basically, that's the 7 spiritual teachers, I call them avatars, who basically taught us the principles of religion. So if we have a religion that's based on the idea of man's interpretation of universal law, the religions are also playing power games, aren't they? You see Christians waging war and Muslims standing up in protest with terrorism, and you see Jews and genocide. What causes genocides? That's what we're going to talk about, the faith of the pure ray. And we're going to come up with God's interpretation to the best of our ability, that creates a sense of equality and stands on all those principles. Oh, religion, equal religions, they're all equal. Pretty cool. Yeah, faith of the pure ray, look into it. It's unifies the religions. If we can unify the universe, if we can do that, basically we can unify the world, 7 religions, 7 major religions, and the conflicts between them. Okay, so we have a lot of fun things that we're going to be doing over the next 20 years or so. So stay tuned. But join the debate. This is important for you to understand that straight ahead isn't necessarily, let's say science isn't necessarily the traditional way to solve the problems, because it'll go down like this when basically they're holding on to ideas. Let's say an oncologist resists a cure for cancer because he's worried about paying his bills. Okay? And people are people, so we're not going to judge anyone, and God doesn't judge anyone either. So basically, if we can come up with all these ideas and allow people to go up and to function on a higher level based on this idea of God, and there's a solution to problems, then basically let's kind of like move all these people who are over here up, and let's just kind of flip those revenge people around and say, hey, I believe in the Constitution. Have you ever read the Declaration of Independence? Wouldn't it be weird if those people who are the rebellion, and they think that you are not a religious person or not a patriotic person because you don't believe the way they do? Wouldn't it be weird if they saw that you believe in the Constitution too? Hey. Okay, so that's all I wanted to say today. Like, share, and subscribe, but most of all share, because people really need to hear this. This is information that's important. So even if you can't get anybody to listen to you, you start thinking about all this stuff. What is the best way to solve problems? Is it to rely on the science when the science doesn't understand the unified field theory? Is it how about a cure for cancer? I'll tell you, I have root cause cards for about 20 of the major problems that we're facing on the planet, and with the planning process, we're going to start solving problems. And okay, so how about if we start talking about them now? And we're going to end. First of all, we're going to end the global genocide. Okay, that started as a result of the Iraq War. Like, share, and subscribe, but most of all, share. Thank you for stopping by.